Today, we're doing something a little different. We're not just covering a topic, we're basically stepping into a museum. But this isn't your typical archive with stone tablets or dusty old books. No, this is a digital archive of censorship. It's a collection of all the stories, the alternate histories, and the really uncomfortable truths that usually get pushed to the side or just wiped clean from the official record altogether. So, let's start the tour.
And to kick things off, we have this quote from Michael Talbot. It's kind of the perfect way to frame what we're about to get into. The idea that what we think of as solid, unchangeable reality might actually be, well, a lot more flexible than we think. Just keep that idea in the back of your mind as we go through these exhibits, because every single one of them is going to challenge what we think is true.
Okay, so our first gallery here is all about the ghosts of pop culture. We're talking about huge public figures whose images have been so carefully built up, while other, much more disturbing stories have been systematically scrubbed away or just dismissed as crazy. This is where the archive really starts to show us what's been intentionally forgotten.
And our first artifact, if you will, is the public branding of Monica Lewinsky. You have to remember, she was just 22 years old, and she was immediately cast as the villain in a story where the power imbalance was just massive. The media machine, almost overnight, created this total caricature to soak up all the public anger. And it worked perfectly to protect the person in power and just erase any nuance.
And then there's this. This next one is even more jarring. This quote is from a biographer of Mark Twain. Yeah, the Mark Twain, one of America's most beloved authors. It preserves this incredibly dark allegation that completely shatters that wholesome public image. This is a perfect example of a piece of history that has been very quietly and very deliberately kept out of the mainstream conversation.
The last piece in this exhibit explores a totally different kind of suppressed story. This isn't about the scandals surrounding Michael Jackson that we all know about. Nope. This points to something way deeper, a supposed connection between his insane global influence and actual occult symbolism. The archive keeps these fringe theories that suggest his fame wasn't just about talent, but that it was the result of some kind of dark magic, a narrative that is completely censored from his pop king persona.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's not just about gossip. This exhibit shows the archive's main job. It holds on to the messy, unsettling details that get scrubbed from the official story. It shows us how the complex and often really disturbing truths about our icons are flattened out into these simple, sanitized versions for us to consume.
All right, now let's move away from the public stage and into some truly hidden worlds. This next gallery is all about communities and spaces that operate completely outside of the mainstream. A lot of times on purpose, just existing in the shadows of the official world.
The key idea to get your head around here is ephemeral cultures. Think about the Dallas underground nightlife scene in the 90s. It was this entire universe of raves and drag shows and counterculture that just exploded out of nowhere and then vanished, leaving almost no official record. It was intentionally undocumented. Without archives like this one, those worlds are just completely erased from history. Gone.
But that brings up a really fascinating question. We've talked about physical underground spaces, but what if the most hidden space of all is actually inside our own consciousness? And that question leads us to our next artifact, which is maybe the strangest one yet.
Okay, just look at this slide. These are these bizarre, shared memories from tons of different people who were in gifted and talented or GATE programs when they were kids. They remember being pulled out of class for weird tests with ESP cards, being given some strange pink drink. Some even had visions of drowning. One person's story sounds crazy, but when you archive them all together, you see a pattern, a hidden and you could say censored curriculum that feels a lot less like advanced education and a lot more like something else.
So what was really going on? The archive seems to suggest these programs weren't just about making smart kids smarter. They might have been these undocumented, underground experiments into psychic abilities and human consciousness, conducted on children, hidden in plain sight right inside the school system. A whole world that existed right under our noses, but was never, ever meant to be remembered.
So if a hidden world like that can exist right in our schools, what other realities might be hidden from us? For our final exhibit, we're going into the deepest, most abstract part of the archive. The things in here don't just challenge history or society, they challenge the nature of reality itself. These are the ideas that are so radical, we often censor them ourselves, just because they're so hard to believe.
Let's just start with this. Just let this statement sit there for a second. This isn't science fiction, by the way. It's a theoretical model in physics. The idea that our solid, tangible world is actually a projection, an image. This is pretty much the cornerstone of our final gallery.
So how in the world does this work? Well, the holographic theory says there are basically two layers of reality. The first one is the world we see and touch, right? The world of sticks and stones. But the second, deeper layer isn't made of objects at all. It's just a sea of energy frequencies, a total blur. And our brain, according to this theory, acts like a projector. It takes that blur of energy and it constructs the three-dimensional world we experience every single day.
Now, if that sounds completely unbelievable, get a load of this number, 30%. That is the percentage of cancer patients in a study who lost their hair after taking a placebo, a simple sugar pill, that they believed was toxic chemotherapy.
You see? This is the key. The placebo effect isn't just mind over matter. If you look at it through the lens of the holographic universe, it's actual evidence that our consciousness, our beliefs, can directly interact with that deeper level of reality and cause real physical changes. Our minds aren't just watching reality, they might be actively creating it. And this is exactly the kind of radical idea this archive is built to preserve.
Okay, so as we leave this strange museum, let's bring it all back to our own lives. We've just toured a collection of suppressed histories and really fringe ideas. But, you know, in the age of algorithms, we all have our own personal archives now, don't we? So I really want to leave you with this question. The archive we've explored today is a deliberate collection of everything that's been wiped clean or just labeled too weird for the mainstream. But what about the algorithm in your pocket, your social media feed? What does it choose to show you? And more importantly, what does it choose to hide? What is being censored from your personal reality every single day?
And that really brings us to the final thought. How much of what we present to the world, both online and off, is just a performance? In a world where our realities are curated for us and our histories can be rewritten, what's the difference between our authentic self and the self we perform for that invisible audience? This whole archive challenges us to look beyond the performance, to question what's real, and to be way more conscious of the stories that are being censored from our own lives.